Hello, and welcome to the Positive Mindset Tribe, a refreshing and empowering podcast on how to become a magnet for love, abundance, and joy. And as you have probably guessed, it all starts with your mindset. I am your host, Veronica Moreno, a mindset coach, therapist, and energy healer, and my mission is to share with you my most powerful tips, psychological tools, energy healing techniques so you can manifest the joyful, meaningful, and successful life you deserve. Are you ready for your weekly dose of motivation, confidence, and empowerment? Let's get started. Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of the Positive Mindset Tribe. I am your host, Veronica Moreno, a mindset coach, energy healer, counselor, and meditation teacher. And in this episode and the next couple of episodes, actually, I'm going to be covering the topic of relationships, which is huge. The topic of relationships is very, very important for me because although I am now happily married to a wonderful man and we have an incredibly loving, honest, and joyful relationship, I feel so blessed. But I have experienced a lot of pain in my previous relationships. My relationships used to be very, very dramatic. My parents got divorced when I was a kid, and I remember it as a very, very traumatic divorce. And later, my dad left when I was a teenager, and I didn't see him for more than 20 years or so. So, as you can imagine, my idea of relationships was full of limiting beliefs like love hurts, falling in love is dangerous, I can't trust men. So for me, relationships were kind of a roller coaster. One day there will be a source of joy and happiness, but then the day after there will be a lot of pain, doubts, frustration, fear. So when I started my personal healing and self-development journey, I knew that one of the things that I had to sort out as soon as possible was relationships. So the first thing I want to tell you today, because there's a lot to cover, but the first thing I want to tell you today is that it doesn't matter where you are at right now in regards to relationships. It doesn't matter how many times you think your previous relationships have failed or how many times the same pattern or outcome has repeated in your life. This can change. Trust me. If I could change, if I was able to change, to heal, to shift my mindset and move from dramatic, painful relationships to loving, healthy, nurturing, blissful relationship, you can. If I can, you can. I have no doubt about it. And there are so many things I want to say about relationships that actually I'm going to record a few episodes on the topic because I don't think I can fit everything I want to say in one episode without making it ridiculously long. And by the way, when I say relationships, obviously a huge part of it will be about romantic relationships. And some examples will be based on romantic relationships just because it's easier, just for the sake of the explanations. But most of the ideas and tips that I will be sharing in these episodes apply not only to romantic relationships, but also relationships with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your colleagues, all forms of relationships, really. So today, in this episode, I'm going to start by covering how to have conscious, healthy, and fulfilling relationships full of love and joy, step by step. And later in another episode, I'm going to be focusing on what to do after a breakup or what to do when you feel that you're still attached to a previous relationship and can't seem to move on. That's a huge one. So that's going to be an episode on its own. And I think I'm going to record another one with common mistakes that we make in relationships that make relationships fail, how to fix them and some other tips. So stay tuned for this mini series because there's going to be a lot of useful and practical information. But for today, this is what I'm going to be covering. Why relationships need to be conscious, healthy, and fulfilling in order for them to be full of love and joy. And I was very intentional choosing these words, conscious, healthy, and fulfilling. So I will be explaining why. I'm going to talk about the drama triangle, the victim, rescuer, and persecutor roles, and how we interact with others and how to use this tool to have more fulfilling relationships. I'm going to talk about why the relationship with yourself is key in improving your relationships. I'm also going to cover the influence of our role models and how to break free from inherited patterns. And there's going to be a lot of information here, but I'm always about giving practical tools. So I'm going to be kind of summarizing or putting together a step-by-step process, an easy to follow step-by-step process, so you can improve your current relationships and attract the loving ones you deserve. Right, so let's get started. First things first, what is a conscious, healthy, and fulfilling relationship? And note that I could have said, or I could have called this episode how to have happy relationships or romantic or beautiful relationships, but I chose those three words, conscious, healthy, and fulfilling, very intentionally and after some reflection. First of all, conscious. It is very important that we are conscious about why we enter a relationship. And one of the main reasons why relationships fail, and here I'm talking about I'm talking more about romantic relationships, is because we don't start a relationship for the right reasons. Sometimes we start a relationship out of boredom. It is very common to start a relationship just to fulfill a need that we haven't been able to meet ourselves on our own. Sometimes we start a relationship because we feel lonely or because we expect the other person to make us feel better. And that is a huge mistake. A relationship should be about two people who are whole, sharing what they have, complementing each other, not looking for the other person to fix your problems. So it is so important that we are conscious and aware of the reasons why we are starting a relationship or why we are maintaining a relationship, because sometimes we keep in touch with friends from school, and sometimes we've grown and we've changed, and we're not in resonance anymore, but we can't seem to let go. It's just kind of a routine, but maybe that relationship is no longer serving us, and sometimes we can surround ourselves with negative people, or I don't want to say negative people, people who have a negative influence on us. So it is important to be conscious and to be aware of the reason behind our relationships, because we are never ever going to be happy if we enter a relationship or we have a relationship because we think that our problems are going to disappear, or the other person will have a magic wand and all our problems will go away. They will only grow bigger, and they will be triggered, and starting a relationship with this reason is a recipe for disaster. And I know I'm putting a lot of emphasis here on relationships that we start, and what is the reason for starting this relationship, but also within our family. I mean, you don't choose your family members. Your parents are who they are. Although, if we do choose our parents spiritually before we incarnate to learn certain lessons, but that is a deeper topic for another day. But if you think about today, your parents are who you are. You can't change that. Your siblings are who they are. You can't change that. But we can also be conscious about the relationship we have with our family members, how we interact with them, because sometimes we get stuck in old patterns where, for example, the mother is the victim and the daughter is the rescuer, or the other way around. And I'm going to be talking more about these roles in the drama triangle later in the episode. But the point I wanted to share here is that we can also be intentional and decide about how we want our relationship with our family to be. We can and we should consciously change any behaviors that are not serving us and set boundaries. So don't be afraid of change. So that's how I would describe conscious relationships. So I'm gonna throw in, as we go along in the episode, I'm gonna be throwing in some questions for self-reflection. So my first question for self-reflection here would be, how can I be more conscious in my relationships? And every time I share a question for self-reflection, feel free to stop the episode here and grab pen and paper and do some journaling, or just write down the questions and, like, gather all the questions together and then go and do some journaling, whatever you prefer. But I would suggest that you spend, even if it's just a minute or two, reflecting on the questions that I'm going to be sharing. Right, so the second element of relationships that are full of love and joy, healthy. They have to be healthy. What do I mean by healthy relationships? By healthy, I mean authentic relationships, where there is no manipulation, no games, just honest communication. And we do this all the time, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously, but there is a lot of communication, a lot of games these days. A healthy relationship is when we act from love, not from fear. And I know relationships can be very scary. Oh my God, yeah, they can be very scary. And I think these days, especially with the virtual digital life promoted by social media, I see that people are finding it more and more difficult to be open in relationships, to or to show their true selves, to be vulnerable, to trust, and sometimes we kind of hide behind the screen. But being honest and opening up is the only way to have deep, intimate, and really joyful relationships. And I know it can be scary, especially when we have been hurt before. And let's face it, we all have been hurt before in a way or another. But this is what I mean by healthy relationships, when where there are no games, no manipulation. The communication is honest. We are sincere. We are open with each other. There are no second intentions behind a behavior or an action. There are no expectations. There's love overall, and obviously healthy relationships is when we have cleared the fear, any wounds from the past, any beliefs that might be preventing us from opening up and enjoying those intimate relationships. So my question for self-reflection is, how can I make my relationships healthier? And the third element of relationships that are full of love and joy is that they need to be fulfilling. And why should we aim for fulfilling relationships? Because this is what is going to give you a deep feeling of joy and satisfaction. So, for example, you can have a conscious and healthy relationship with your neighbor, where you have a chat every now and then, you get along, you respect each other. But to have fulfilling relationships, those relationships that bring you deep joy, you need to go deeper. And for me, there has to be an element of growing together in the relationship. Relationships are the best and probably the toughest subject in the academy of life. We can learn so much from our relationships if we are willing to do so. Relationships can be healing, can be rewarding, can be a source of absolute bliss, but we need to be clear on the purpose of the relationship. So, for example, I feel so grateful for my husband, because during the 8 years we have been together, we have changed so much, both of us. We are a complete different person compared to when we met each other. And we have changed in different ways, but we have grown so much. And the beauty of it is that we have helped each other grow. We have helped each other heal in our journeys. So not only we have a common project together, to be a family, to share our skills, to complement each other with the different strengths, but I feel that we were supposed to be together for the purpose of sharing our healing and self-development journey and support each other in that journey. And that is truly fulfilling. So obviously not every single relationship you have with every single person in your life is going to be as deep or as purposeful, but those relationships that are going to bring you that sense of satisfaction, of love, of joy, of peace, will have an element of purpose in them. So my question for self-reflection is, what is the purpose of my relationships? Right. So the idea of these episodes, this was just kind of an overall description or just general ideas about relationships that I wanted to share. But the idea of these episodes is that you have all the tools you need to enjoy these conscious, healthy, and fulfilling relationships. So how to make them happen. So one of my favorite ever tools, especially for relationships, is the drama triangle, and how we interact with each other, the roles we take on to interact with each other. The drama triangle, it's a fantastic tool, and it's based on the idea that people take on three main roles when they don't know how to meet their needs in a healthy way. So the drama triangle has three main roles: the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. Now, I recorded an episode all about this topic where I explain in detail all about the roles. So I'm not going to go into that much detail today, but please feel free to go back to that episode to learn more about this tool, which actually this episode is the second most popular of all the episodes I have recorded so far. I think this is number 15, and the drama triangle one is the second most popular, the second most played. But anyway, the basic idea for the ones who haven't listened to that episode, the basic idea is that when we take on one of these roles, so for example, the role of the victim, and when we take on the role of the victim, we feel disempowered. Basically, we want someone to save us. When we are in rescuer mode, the other role, we forget about ourselves and we want to save others. Which is not the same as helping, because people think, oh, I'm a rescuer, but it's just because I like to help people. Yeah, but saving someone is not the same as helping. Saving someone is disempowering. It's disempowering for the other person because you are assuming that they don't have the resources to do whatever they need to do. It's like assuming that they can't do what they have to do on their own. And the third role is the persecutor. So when we take on the persecutor role, we can become very critical, very judgmental. We can be very mean to others, even through jokes. This is a very common characteristic of people who take on the persecutor role very often. Jokes, teasing people, it can be all behind like socially accepted comments, but at the end of the day, it's still critical, it's still judgmental, and if it's not positive or not constructive criticism or feedback, is not helping the other person. So why do we take on these roles? It can be due to various reasons. Maybe that's what you learn to do to survive. Maybe you copied a behavior from a role model, from your parents, someone at school. But there is always a benefit in taking one of these roles. And by benefit, I don't mean a healthy or pleasant outcome, but there is always a benefit. We achieve something by taking on these roles. When we take on the victim role, maybe the benefit is that someone will come and help us do something, or save us do something for our own. When we are in the rescuer mode, in rescuer mode, maybe we forget about ourselves, about our problems. Maybe we make ourselves feel better when we are saving someone. And when we take on the persecutor role, maybe we are protecting ourselves from us being the victim and persecuted. So normally we can take on these roles many times a day, different roles within the same day, but normally we will have one that we tend to take on, kind of a favorite one. But we can change from one to another within minutes, really. So the way to escape the drama triangle and to stop taking on these roles is by asking yourself, how can I meet my needs in a healthier way? So for example, how can I ask for help if I need support, if I need help, without having to disempower myself and be in the victim mode? Can I just openly ask about help? Can I learn how to do it myself? Can I change my mindset to have a more empowering, to have more empowering thoughts, more empowering ideas, a more positive attitude? And that's just one example. But yeah, the question would be, how can I meet my needs in a healthier way without having to take on this role? And if you think about your current relationships, if you have a partner, a romantic relationship, if you think of your family members, if you think of your neighbors, colleagues at work, anyone really, this is a really interesting tool to just observe. For example, in family dinners, I think I recorded the episode of the Drama Triangle right before Christmas, and I said, right guys, grab your popcorn, because this is going to be so funny to just sit at the dinner table and watch everyone take on their roles, the victim, the persecutor, the rescuers. Just be aware of it, just detach yourself from it, and instead of reacting, just observe. Or same at work, in the office, have a look and just be aware, and try to identify these roles, and try to identify what are the roles that you take on, because sometimes what happens is that even though we might have a favorite role, or a role that we take on more often, it can happen that maybe in romantic relationships you are the rescuer, but then at home you are the victim, or the other way around. So it can be that in different relationships we take on different roles, which is very interesting. And this is going to help you a lot understand about behaviors and patterns within relationships. So a great tool. Right, another idea that I want to share here, which is strictly necessary in order to have loving, fulfilling relationships, is that the relationship with yourself is key in improving your relationship. So before you can consider improving your relationship with someone else, you have to start very likely improving the relationship with yourself. And I hear a lot of people say things like, I would be very happy if only they changed, if only my husband changed this habit, if he did this instead, or that other thing instead. Or I hear people say, I always attract the wrong partner, I always attract the wrong people into my life. But people are not right or wrong. So sometimes what we attract is a reflection of the relationship with ourselves. So if you want to improve your relationships deeply, most of the time it's not about the other person changing. It's not about finding the right person instead of the wrong person. It is about changing the relationship with yourself, and then things around change. Because most of the time, like I said, how other people treat us is just a reflection of how we treat ourselves. So if you tend to get stuck with partners that don't value you, my question for you would be, do you value yourself? If you tend to complain that your partners don't love you, my question for you would be, do you love yourself unconditionally? Or if you tend to get stuck in jobs where people don't appreciate or celebrate what you do, for example, my question would be, do you appreciate and celebrate what you do? And I know this is a difficult one to swallow, but I have experienced this firsthand and have seen it with many of my clients. And when you start building your confidence, when you believe in yourself, when you prioritize yourself, when you respect yourself, you will see that people notice this, even if they're not aware of it, but they sense it and they change. And when you love yourself and value yourself, then you see that there is no space for time wasters in your life. You just can't deal with them. You don't tolerate abusive behaviors because you love yourself so much that you don't tolerate this in your life. And people can sense when you change, when there is this internal shift, people can feel the power in you. So people who tend to have abusive behaviors will see you and they will be like, oh, I don't see a victim in here. They won't see a victim in you anymore, and they will go find somewhere else, because you won't be in resonance anymore. You won't be a match anymore. So this is so important. It's not about finding the right people. It's about having the right relationship with yourself. It's about loving yourself so much, valuing yourself so much, respecting yourself so much that you just won't even conceive the idea of letting someone abusive coming near you. And it all starts with an internal shift. And you can't expect people to change, because they won't. Some people change, and in some relationships you learn from each other, and obviously there will be moments or there will be things about your partner that you might not like, and you can discuss it, and you can change and grow together, but you can't change someone's personality. So it's not about finding the right person or changing the person you already have. It's about changing their relationship with yourself. It's about that internal shift, and then everything around changes. So my invitation for you today is to take some time to reflect on your relationship with yourself, and how you can love yourself more, how you can build your confidence, your inner power. And there are at least a couple of episodes in this podcast about self-love, about self-confidence. And in my YouTube channel, there are many meditations and other videos on these topics, because this is one of the main things that I work on with my clients: building confidence, empowerment, unleashing that inner power, that inner wisdom, believing in themselves. So if this is resonating with you, go and do the deep work. You won't regret it, I promise. Because when you go through this process of loving yourself, honoring yourself, respecting, valuing, celebrating yourself, everything around changes. It's magical, I promise. And then you don't have to worry about the people around you, because everything just changes. You won't be in resonance with people who want to abuse you or hurt you anymore. So I know this is a deep one, but trust me, it's probably the most powerful thing you can do. Right. Another idea that I wanted to mention before we moved on, before we move on to the step-by-step process, which is the influence from our role models, the influence they have in our relationships, and how to break free from inherited patterns. So what I mean by inherited patterns is that many times the patterns that we repeat in our relationships, and we might think about them as mistakes or sorry, or things we've done wrong, negative habits, whatever you want to call them. But sometimes the patterns that repeat again and again in our relationships are a copy of what someone in our family used to do many times. This is very common. And I mean, this makes sense, because after all, this is how we learn about relationships. There isn't a subject in school that teaches you how to attract conscious, healthy, fulfilling relationships full of love and joy, right? And if your school had this subject, please let me know the name, because I want to send my kids there. But this is not how we learn about relationships. We normally learn by copying what others do. And sometimes without even questioning if it's right or wrong. We just absorb certain beliefs. We absorb these beliefs without even realizing it. We absorb certain beliefs subconsciously. So it is super important to understand our patterns, our behaviors, and our beliefs about relationships, because it could well be that they have been directly inherited or copied from someone in our family, and maybe they're not serving us. Some of them might be useful, but my invitation for you today is to spend some time thinking about your beliefs about relationships or patterns, and ask yourself, are they serving me? And if they're not serving you, what beliefs do I want to have instead? And there is an episode about limiting beliefs in this podcast where I talk about this step by step, and I explain how theta healing, which is one of the energy healing techniques that I use in my sessions, is absolutely a wonderful technique, probably one of my favorite techniques to clear subconscious beliefs that are holding us back and replace them with empowering ones. So go back to that episode that has a lot of information on beliefs, and you can apply it to beliefs about relationships in particular. Right, so I know I have shared a lot of information here, that I've thrown a lot of ideas, a lot of questions for self-reflection, but like I promised at the beginning, I want to finish this episode by sharing a step-by-step process that you can follow so you can have those conscious, healthy, fulfilling relationships full of love and joy that you deserve. So the first step will be visualize your ideal relationships. And this might sound very silly, but if you don't know your relationship goals, if you don't know how you would like your relationships to be, how are you going to change them? How are you going to improve it? So think about, it might be a new partner that you want to attract, or new friends. You might be thinking about improving your marriage, or the relationship with your parents or siblings, whatever it is for you. But first of all, spend some time thinking how you would like these relationships to be. What qualities would they have? How do you treat each other? How do you spend your time together? And set your intentions in a journal, or do a guided meditation. I have a very powerful theta healing guided meditation in my YouTube channel to attract new relationships. And I will leave the link in the description, but it can be as simple as visualizing yourself a few minutes every day, enjoying your new or improved relationships, feeling grateful for them. But go in detail, grab some pen and paper, and describe how you would like all your relationships, old and new, to be. Be very clear, very intentional about the characteristics of these relationships. So that will be step number one. Step number two will be, how are your current relationships, and what is the difference? What needs to change in your relationships in order to be the relationships you have defined and described in step one? And here you might want to revisit the answers to the questions for self-reflections that I have been sharing in this episode. So this is all about self-discovery. This is all about learning about yourself. This step is about understanding why your current relationships are the way they are and what needs to change. So for example, going back to some self-reflection questions, what roles of the drama triangle do you normally take on? What is the benefit? How can I meet my needs in a healthier way? So this is all about learning about yourself. And again, you can stop the episode after each question, or you can just write them down and then go after the episode is finished and spend some time in a quiet place for self-reflection. More questions for self-reflection. Are my relationships conscious? Are they healthy? Are they fulfilling? Who have been your main role models in relationships? What have you copied from them? What are your beliefs about relationships? Are they serving you? If they're not serving you, what do you need to do to let go of the patterns, old stories, roles, beliefs that are no longer serving you? And what empowering beliefs would you like to have instead? And one thing you can do here is make a list of affirmations about relationship, empowering positive affirmations about relationships, and read them out every day. This is really, really powerful. Really, really powerful. Please note, I'm gonna share a caveat here. Please note that patterns that are deeply rooted, or past experiences that left a big imprint causing deep pain or fear, might need deeper work to be healed and cleared. So journaling or raising awareness can be very powerful, and that can start creating a big shift and deep transformation. But normally when there is a deeply rooted pattern or experience that has caused very deep subconscious beliefs or a lot of fear, anger, it might take some deep work to be clear, to be healed. So I would suggest that if relationship is something you're struggling with, you work with someone who can help you go deep to heal and grow in a safe space. Relationships is a topic that I often, very, very, very often cover in my sessions. And at the moment I'm offering some free clarity sessions. So this is also a reminder. If you would like me to help you identify the main block that is stopping you from enjoying the loving and joyful relationships you deserve, feel free to book one of these clarity sessions. Not only I will help you identify the main block, but you will leave the session with a renewed vision about yourself and the possibilities for yourself, and you will get a list of next steps to get you closer to your relationship goals. This is a no obligation, free of charge session, so you have literally nothing to lose. So I'm gonna leave a link in the description of the episode so you can book yours. Right, so that's step number 2, which is all about raising awareness, healing, clearing, letting go of old stories, beliefs. Now, step number 3 is redefining the relationship with yourself, and things around will change. Like I said, when you do that, this is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself, which is closely linked to step number 2, but with a deep focus on improving yourself and changing the relationship with yourself in order for the other relationships to change. And this is especially important if you tend to get stuck in relationships where you don't feel valued, you don't feel appreciated, you don't feel loved, you don't feel respected. If this sounds like you, this is a good indication that the priority for you is to shift the relationship with yourself, so you can start loving, valuing, and celebrating yourself more. And then the rest will follow. The others will follow. When they see that you love yourself, that they respect yourselves, they won't see any option. They will notice that you are empowered, and they wouldn't even dare to try abuse you or criticize you or manipulate you. You're not going to be in resonance. So there is an episode fully dedicated to self-love in this podcast, which is also a very popular one. So have a look at that one if you want to know more details of how you can start cultivating self-love and starting a self-love and self-care practice. But honestly, the relationship with yourself is everything. If your relationship with yourself is not healthy, none of the other relationships you have are going to be healthy. It's impossible. They're just a manifestation, a reflection of what is going on inside. So yeah, who couldn't do with more self-love these days, right? So everyone, we can all do with adding a bit more self-love to our lives. Right, so that was step number 3. And step number 4 is take action. So the first step was about setting intentions. I've been sharing a lot of questions for self-reflection and to gain awareness for step number 2 and step number 3. We've talked about going within and letting go of what is no longer serving you, building that self-confidence, that self-belief. But nothing will change if you don't take action. It doesn't matter how many times you visualize yourself having wonderful, loving, joyful relationships. It doesn't matter how long you journal for answering the questions I've suggested for self-reflection. If you don't take action, nothing is going to change. So my last question for you today is, what are 3 things, and 3, I mean, it's a random number that I made up. It might be 1, it might be 5. But what are the 3 things that you can start doing today to get you closer to enjoying those conscious, healthy, and fulfilling relationships full of love and joy that you deserve? very specific actions that you can start taking today, and they can be very simple. They can be very simple. It could be being more aware of how I interact with other people. It might be saying no to some commitments I have next month that I know that I don't want to go to, and I'm gonna start setting boundaries. It could be something like, I'm gonna be more kind. I'm gonna add more kindness to the way I treat people. I'm gonna be more loving. I'm gonna try to say more kindness, loving, compassionate words. It can be whatever you like, whatever you need, because we will all need different things at different times. So choose 3 actions that will help you, that will have the biggest impact in order to get you closer to those relationships full of love and joy that you deserve. Wow, that was a deep episode with a lot of information, right? And I think I haven't even covered half of what I wanted to talk about in terms of relationships. So this was kind of a general overview and a step-by-step process to help you have healthy, more fulfilling relationships. But in the next couple of episodes, I'm going to delve deeper into some topics related to relationships. The next one is going to be dedicated to how to move on after a breakup, or how to finally close or leave behind an old relationship that you might feel that you're still attached to, because I see this a lot. Sometimes I hear, I broke up, I got divorced 20 years ago, but I still feel that person is part of my life. I still feel I can't move on. I can't meet new people. So that's going to be an episode on its own, because I think it's a very important one. And then there's going to be another one dedicated to common mistakes that make relationships fail, and how to avoid them, and some other tips. Obviously, I'm always open to hearing suggestions. So if you have any questions after this episode, or anything that you would like me to cover in further detail, please feel free to email me at hello@veronica-moreno.com and ask, and you will receive. It's that simple. Okay, my loves, another reminder to book your free clarity session while they're still available. If you're looking at shifting your mindset and healing past wounds so you can manifest an abundant life full of love, joy, and success. And a big, big thank you if you made it this far in this episode. Please, 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 one more favor. Remember to please like and review and subscribe to this podcast and share it with your loved ones. Okay, sending much love and light to you all, and see you next week. Bye-bye.